Ignoring the vituperative outbursts of ideologues, Vincent Scully made the battle for the soul of modern architecture seem like a conversation among reasonable people. An historian, a critic, and a passionate public intellectual, through his writings, Vincent Scully will continue to be central to architectural thinking for generations to come. I was privileged to study under Vince more than 50 years ago. His wisdom and friendship have benefited me over the many years since, ending with my time as dean when he was Sterling Professor Emeritus of the History of Art in Architecture. As a teacher, as we know and have already heard, Vince inspired literally thousands of students, Yale undergraduates who would take away from his classes a sense that they too had a responsibility to help shape the physical world. And the roster of architectural professionals who were Scully students constitutes a veritable who's who of contemporary practice, extending from those of my generation to a younger generation now reaching maturity, and even those who are just making their voices heard. It is for this reason, as much as for his scholarship, his critical writing, and his brilliant insights, that Philip Johnson proclaimed him the most influential architecture teacher ever. Scully's path-breaking first book, The Shingle Style, 1955, not only put an enduring name to a hitherto undefined American tradition, it also provided us with a definitive understanding of and appreciation for the formal and cultural differences between European and American architecture, spawning work by former students of my generation that he described with pride and not a little irony as the historian's revenge. Though fiercely committed to the discipline of art history, Vince was an active participant in the life of the architecture school. It was Vince who helped sort out the mess that lay in the wake of George Howe's retirement in 1954. And it was Vince who argued on behalf of Paul Rudolph, who he believed could best return the program to glory. In my student days, students came to Yale because of Rudolph and because of Scully. In the late 1960s, when architecture students began to protest against what they characterized, correctly in my opinion, as the overblown heroics of American modernists, and especially their participation in the destructive slash and burn urban renewal strategies that were then coming to the fore, Scully, one of the few faculty who commanded student respect amidst the protests, embraced their cause, drawing on his deep scholarship to help shape their argument, but never abandoning his essential belief that protest carried with it responsibility for decorum. In 1990, when the university still held to a mandatory retirement age of 70, Vince was forced to give up teaching. He was furious, as you can imagine, and he enlisted my help, and no doubt many others of you in this room, to make his case to the president of the university for continuing on. But it was Thomas Beebe, the dean of the school, who saved the day by offering a teaching position in the graduate program, which came with a much reduced salary, but that wasn't the point for Vince. He was overjoyed to remain in the classroom. By the time I became dean in 1998, Vince was more than ever a principal citizen of Yale, a force majeure to be respected, and as President Levin has already alluded to, on at least one notable occasion, feared. One of the few who dared to speak out about architectural issues on Yale's campus, issues of stewardship and respect for the past. When in spring 1999, with President Levin's support, I convened a symposium to assess the university's programs for renovation and new construction, one topic came to the fore: the decision to demolish 4 buildings at the Delano and Aldrich designed Divinity School campus. Scully was the keynote speaker, but after reviewing the plans during the course of the event that had been presented for remodeling the Divinity School, he asked that he be allowed to return to the platform at the end of the three-day gathering, at which time, before a packed audience, including numerous architects who had been his students, looking directly at President Levin, he said, quote, "If the Divinity School were rebuilt according to the present plan, I'd have to rethink my future in this institution. Loyalty can be stretched only so far." Needless to say, the buildings threatened with the wrecking ball were saved, but even more importantly, Vince helped spark a renewed respect, as President Levin has made clear, for the role architecture can and does play in a great university. My own personal debt to Vincent Scully, as that of countless students, is immense. Because of Vincent Scully, generations of architects and others have chosen to pursue an architecture and urbanism rooted in memory rather than amnesia. With a scholar's knowledge and an actor's passion, Vincent Scully helped us to appreciate the empathetic relationship between humankind and its masterworks of the built environment. Perhaps his greatest contribution of all was that he taught us how to see.